If you clicked on this, there's a decent chance some part of you has been wondering whether the weight you've carried, the chaos, the grief, the years of holding everything together while quietly falling apart actually did something unique. Perhaps it changed you, and not in the soft, inspirational way people write on mugs. In a real way. Thing is, genuine adversity doesn't only build character the way people say it does at funerals and graduation speeches. It restructures how your brain processes the world, and some of what it builds in you is quite profound. So, let's talk about 7 signs that you didn't just survive something, you came out the other side with a kind of intelligence that many people never have to develop since they weren't forced to. Sign 1. You don't scare easily in conversations. Someone brings up death or their failing marriage and you don't flinch. Others might redirect to something lighter. You just stay. And while most people are terrible at this, they usually haven't sat long enough in their own darkness to know that it doesn't actually kill you to be there. You have, and that makes you one of the rarest people someone in pain can find themselves next to. There's something else underneath this one, though, that's worth naming. For some people, the weight they carried wasn't one event. It was an accumulation. Years of chronic stress, emotional neglect, or environments that were never safe enough to fully relax in. Clinicians sometimes recognize this pattern as complex trauma, and one of its lesser-known effects is that it quietly builds an extraordinary capacity for staying present with pain, your own and other people's. You've already been inside it long enough to know it has edges. Sign 2. You make decisions differently under pressure. There's a quality to the decision-making of someone who has already been through a genuine crisis. A kind of groundedness that doesn't come from confidence exactly, more from knowing that they've already been in rooms they didn't think they'd walk out of and still did. When things get hard around you, something in you gets quieter, not louder, because your nervous system has already done this before and knows how to orient. People in your life have probably looked to you in moments of crisis in a way that felt slightly out of proportion to what you were putting out. That's why it just doesn't hit you the same way it hits other people. Sign 3. Your relationship with certainty is fundamentally different. People who have not been through much tend to need things to be resolved, concluded. They find ambiguity uncomfortable in a way that makes them reach for easy answers. You've already lived through situations where there was no easy answer, where the outcome was genuinely unknown for months or years, and you had to keep functioning any way possible. Psychologists call the capacity to tolerate this ambiguity tolerance, and it correlates strongly with creative problem-solving, complex reasoning, and leadership effectiveness. You developed it the hard way by being handed a situation with no instructions and being left to figure out what to do with it. Sign 4. You've lost your appetite for performance. There's a kind of exhaustion that comes from having gone through real suffering. It makes small social performances feel unbearable at times. The pretend curated version of yourself for the sake of people's comfort, the conversations that stay relentlessly surface level. You've been through something that stripped some of the social veneer away, and now you can't always get it back on. It's made you recalibrate. You've developed post-traumatic growth, a restructuring of what actually matters and worth your energy and who you're willing to spend it with. Some people find that quality off-putting. The right people find it like oxygen. The next one is subtle but quite powerful. Sign 5. You have a complicated but honest relationship with your own emotions, not in the way people say it, like I'm in touch with my feelings. You're not performing emotional intelligence. You've actually spent time in the basement of yourself. The grief you didn't ask for, the anger that had nowhere to go. The specific loneliness of feeling like what you were carrying was too heavy to explain to anyone. That kind of internal digging, even when it was involuntary and painful, build a level of self-awareness that's hard to develop any other way. Therapy can help you reach it, but lived experience tends to accelerate it. You not only feel things, you understand where they come from, and that's rarer than people think. Sign 6. You read rooms away other people. Read headlines. You walk into a space, and within seconds, something in you has already taken inventory. The tension between two people who are pretending everything is fine. The person who is smiling but whose eyes haven't moved. You didn't take a class on this. You developed it because at some point in your life, reading the environment around you wasn't social skill. It was essential to your survival. Research on childhood adversity and hypervigilance shows that people who grew up in unpredictable or emotionally volatile environments often develop an acutely refined sensitivity to social and emotional cues. The brain, particularly the amygdala, becomes calibrated to detect threat and nuance simultaneously. What others experience as a vague feeling in a room, you experience almost like information. That's not anxiety. Well, it can be anxiety too, but the underlying mechanism is also a form of deeply trained emotional intelligence. The last one is fairly nuanced. Sign 7. You grieve well, and that's a form of intelligence. The capacity to actually grieve, to sit inside loss, without immediately trying to fix, reframe, or fast forward through it is cognitively and emotionally sophisticated. It's about letting things be unresolved, staying with the discomfort, and knowing you can carry it without falling apart. Most people are genuinely terrible at this, but mostly because of inexperience. You've been given, well, forced into really a depth of emotional processing that most people spend their whole lives constructing elaborate systems to avoid. That capacity for genuine grieving means you understand impermanence in a way that reshapes how you love your decision-making and what you pay attention to. Here's what I want you to reflect on. None of this is a justification for what you went through. It doesn't make the hard thing okay, or necessary, or secretly worth it in some tidy narrative sense. Some things were always too much, and they should not have happened the way they did. That's allowed to be true at the same time as this, that you specifically, you took what happened and your mind found a way to build something with it, something quiet and real. The people in your life who are most drawn to you, who feel most held, who reach out when they have nowhere else to go, they can sense it, even if they can't name it. They're responding to someone who has been somewhere and came back carrying more than they left with. You are not behind, or someone who just barely made it through. You are someone who went somewhere very few people go and found out what you were made of. One last thing, and this is only if parts of this felt uncomfortably familiar. Understanding these patterns is one thing. Actually changing them is something else entirely, and most people don't really know where to start. So I've linked something in the description and pinned comment that I think a lot of you'll find genuinely useful. It's a bundle of simple, structured guides designed to genuinely help with things like overthinking, emotional regulation, focus, and building better patterns. Day by day. Nothing overwhelming, just practical steps you can actually follow each day, especially if your mind tends to run ahead of you like we've been talking about in this video. If that sounds like something you need, I hope you check it out. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on my future uploads. See you there.